How's the shake?
Lovely.
Looks purple.
Well, it is purple. Vitality of life.
What's in there? Do I want to
That
know?
is 2 scoops of protein powder,
Yep.
frozen fruit,
Yes.
water, and oats.
Oats.
100 grams because it's training day.
Oh.
So
Gym in
yeah,
a minute then.
2 of these a day, mate.
Lovely.
And that is a magic potion. Anyway,
Can't forget the secret ingredient in there though.
no, can't tell you that.
No.
Tastes nice as well.
Ideal.
Anyway, before we go on to this, mate, the thumbnail and title. Let's have a look at this beauty. It's a nice colour, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's the Morris 1000.
With perfume.
Oh, you can take all that off, can you?
Yeah.
It's all painted now, is it?
All painted up.
So, this be the one that the other day when we were doing our calculations in the last video, calculations for the exhaust valves and the lift and what have you, we worked it out that we need to put pockets in the top of the block, don't we?
Yes.
So that is what I've done.
Little valve recesses.
Little valve recesses, mate. So you can see there, look, looking very pro, isn't it?
That does look good.
So we've gone for, obviously, a bigger diameter than the exhaust valve. And we've gone for 1.5 mil deep.
1.5 mil.
Be all right, wouldn't it?
Well, it should be with the
Should be
with
absolutely
those
fine.
calculations. Then, in theory,
Don't want to go
work.
too deep because you don't want to affect the compression ratio.
No.
But you also don't want to go too deep that it goes down as far as the top ring.
yeah. And we'll do the old plasticine test just to double check as well.
That's right. We've, believe it or not, it looks very thin in the middle there, but we've got about 0.5 mil aside of the gasket.
Yeah.
So you've got to leave
Doesn't actually on camera. It doesn't actually look that thin.
Oh, doesn't it? It looks quite thin in reality.
Yeah.
But there we go. So the way I do that is set the block up dead square to the table. We centre the bore, find the centre, just touch on the bore here, and then go over, I think 6.5 mil.
Yeah.
Something like that. And we do it on all the exhaust sides. So that's going to give us enough clearance. We're not going to have contact if our calculations be correct.
Yeah.
So those pockets really should be good enough for any cam that wants to chuck in it, shouldn't it?
Yeah, should be.
Because he's got the 1275 head on a 1098 block.
1098 block, 1098 standard cam.
Yeah.
So it should, yeah. With this cam or any cam, it should be all right, really.
Nice, with whatever lift ratio we
Yeah.
use. So
Yeah.
they go up to 1.5, I think, and they are
Yeah.
1.22.
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah. So you painted the block. Just got a few things. You got to paint the head. The head's all done, isn't it?
Head is here,
Oh,
painted in the
Look
same,
at that.
same colour.
That is lovely. Do we know what green this is?
It's, well, on the tin it said British Racing Green, but John's convinced it is not a British Racing Green.
Well,
But we used it on a Lotus twin cam block.
we did.
A
And it
while
looked
ago.
lovely, didn't it, when it was
did,
built?
yeah. Yeah.
With the silver bits.
Yeah.
Contrasting, bit of black. Nice. So yeah, quite a nice little motor to put together, isn't it, when it's all
Yeah.
clean, mate?
Yeah, I like these. I like the A-series stuff.
Yeah.
And this one's even better because it's a rear-wheel drive setup rather than a front-wheel drive, so you don't have that silly sump gearbox
No.
shenanigans.
No. Oh, that's quite nice.
Yeah, so it's like a normal motor.
Yeah. Very nice, mate.
Yeah.
Well, I've had funny old week so far. What was that?
I think that was,
Funny old week, really, for me.
Yeah.
A lot of blasting, a lot of cleaning.
yeah.
The box full of bits to be plated. We're having some stuff done in clear zinc, some in yellow zinc, which comes up as like the gold colour.
Yep.
Been doing that most of the week for both of the Cosworth engines over there.
Yep.
And so it's one of those processes that seem to take so long, but really you've cleaned most of the bits of the engine. So by
Yeah.
the time we've done the machine and cylinder head, it's literally Meccano, isn't it, with the new
Yeah.
bits. So that's the nice bit.
It is, yeah.
And the cleaning and the de-oiling is horrible on anything. But
It's just one of them.
It's got to be done, innit?
You
It's
feel
got
like
to be
you're doing
done.
so much but getting nowhere. It's almost like
You do.
it's like it's just something you have to do.
Yeah.
It'd be nice if you didn't have to do, but
And
you
you never
sort
seem
of
to
do
get
have
to the bloody end of it.
Yeah.
Of course, one of them, especially, we want to use all the original nuts and bolts, which usually I replace the nuts and bolts on a lot of it. But because of what it is, it's an original Sierra, one owner car.
Right.
Try and keep all
Yeah.
and the nuts and bolts, although they're grubby and that, they're in quite good nick. They're not corroded,
they're not rounded off or anything. So.
No. So we'll have them all clear zinced.
Ideal.
Smart when it's done, won't it? Turbo's been done at the moment. The turbo for the other engine is all done, the T34. We've got the 2 sets of pistons. So the 200 block that's on its way for this one is on a standard bore. So that's going to go to 0.5. So I've got a new set of pistons here from Mar and another set of pistons over here at 0.5 to go in the one for this.
They're your standard Marlers and...
Standard Marlers, mate, can't beat them.
Yeah,
unless you're going silly power and you've got to start running lightweights, you can't beat these. They're tried and proven. The only thing I do is stick my pockets in, balance them up, take a bit off the top, whatever we need to get the right squish.
They're like a sort of, not one size fits all, but they're your starting point for your sort of decent power Cosy build, isn't it?
Oh yeah, they go up to decent power, these. They're a good old piston. So yeah, that's why I use them now. And they're not much more expensive than some of the others.
Yeah, well, you know they're good quality, so...
Exactly.
It's ideal.
But this is another Cosworth.
So this isn't the one owner Sierra
no,
one then?
this is just the block.
One.
I've got a long stud the block for that one.
Yeah.
Bore it, face it, do all the work. So it's over there to be cleaned. In the meantime, we've had another engine coming yesterday, mate.
Right.
And this would be the thumbnail.
Yeah, I'm seeing some throttle bodies there.
Yes, we will get to that in a moment.
That sort of indicates one thing.
This is not a turbo. This is a normally aspirated. And not only that, mate, this is the first normally aspirated that I ever built.
Really?
Yeah. It's about 7, 8 year old, this.
Oh, right.
Did it ages ago, way before the channel, way before John and I bought the place. So I was employed.
Yeah.
And we sort of did this one through Barham Engineering, as it was then, when I was employed. So, the spec of this, I mean, it was so long ago that I've had to look up all the old paperwork.
Right.
Which, at the time, fortunately, I was sort of doing the Cosworths through myself, but through work, because I was employed.
So it's your name, but...
Yeah, so I kept paperwork, so I knew where I got stuff and all this. Obviously, it was right at the very beginning for me, really, as far as Cosies go, so where I got bits from has changed over the years. But this spec here is a Wasner piston. They call it a high comp piston, but it's a normally aspirated.
See them sticking out the block there.
With a standard 4-wheel drive head, they reckon they're about 12 to 1, 12.5 to 1.
Christ.
This compression ratio here, we worked out, it's about 12 to 1 with the head and the thickness of the head. It's got a big valve, highly ported cylinder head, 2-wheel drive head, and Turbo Sport roller throttle bodies, which are a nice bit of kit, and also Turbo Sport cams and solid lifters. So this engine here is really, the spec is good for getting on 280 horsepower, apparently.
Dry sump and all, isn't it?
Dry sump. That's another Turbo Sport bit of kit.
Yeah.
So the history of this, I think it's a Group 4 Mark II Escort.
Okay.
Customer called Kevin up in Scotland. He's done 4 or 5 rallies, I think, with it.
Yeah.
Got in touch with me after the last one, said he's down on power.
Oh.
So we had a chat, and I said, really, you need to check the cam timing. He was going to take it somewhere local there, but in the end I convinced him, pull the motor, send it back to me, let me check your cam time and check everything that I've done back then is correct.
Yeah.
Because obviously it was a long time ago. We need to check all the basics.
And he'd not had it in the car for a fair amount of time, hadn't he?
No, he was still building the car when we did it, so the car was pretty much bare metal when we did it.
Right.
So this thing has been sitting for probably 6 or 7 years. So we've got it back here. First thing I've checked is the cam timing before we start ripping it to bits. The cams seem to be about 2 degrees out, which ain't a lot, on both consistently, but what I think it is because although it was a new belt kit, it was a very long time ago and could have probably done with sticking a new belt on. It's how it's been stored, I don't know, but it looks like at some point it's been stored in a bit of a damp area.
Yeah, it does.
Getting the front pulley off was an absolute mare, and it's all corroded, and it looks
corroded like mad.
I know it's done some rallies and whatever, but it looks very second-hand, doesn't it, already now?
Yeah.
So
doesn't look brand
even
new.
the rocker cover looks horrible. So
yeah, it does actually.
But then we stuck the camera down the bore, checked the plugs out, got the plugs over here. Didn't look too bad, the plugs.
Yeah, fairly consistent.
Fairly consistent. I mean, how new these are, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's obviously running coil packs, etc. Stuck a camera down. We've seen not great signs on the edges of the pistons.
No.
Especially one in particular. So we've removed the head, and you can see here, mate. You can see the top of the top ring, which is not great.
Oh God.
I know.
No, that ain't good, is it?
No. Now, the problem we got here, these are Wasner pistons. This is how they come. We have had to open the pockets up a little bit by the looks of it. I mean, it's a long time ago.
He's got big valves, hasn't he? So.
Yeah, and I've done my measurements, and even as they are, you've got about 0.5 mil of clearance between the edge of the valve and the cutout.
So there's not much more you can do.
Not really.
You can't really go any smaller than that.
Not a great deal. We've checked our squish height, which is all good. We're using a 1.6 mil thick gasket with about 0.2 of protrusion here. So the compression ratio should be about 12:1, going by the crown.
Yeah.
Obviously, I've done a bit of machining, so it's probably a little bit less than that. But I said to him at the time, probably best on the conservative side.
Yeah.
The only thing I did notice, first of all,
it's bad there.
Whether Kevin's wife's a bit upset because he's been carving her colanders up and used the gauze as. I mean, these are going to be pretty good for keeping bumblebees out.
Do you think he ran it with that?
Well, I think so. But they ain't going to be filtering out a lot of stuff, is it, that?
No.
But that ain't his problem. So before I move the head, I've removed the throttle bodies, and this is what we found. Now, I spoke to Kevin, I said, have you removed these throttle bodies? He says, yes, we have, because you can't get the engine in without taking them off.
Oh, right.
So these have been put on after the engine is in.
Yeah.
And whoever's put them back on, they should have an O-ring in here. So it sits flush against the head.
Which is nowhere to be seen.
No. On the original Cosworth, obviously you've got a gasket, like so.
That one.
Someone's used a gasket, ladened it in silicon. But when you put it on, how it was sitting, so that is, all the holes are lined up there. Particularly on, it gets worse from number one.
Overhanging, isn't it?
Overhanging. So about 3 mil. I've worked that
quite
out.
a bit.
And the other way there, so.
It's definitely not.
No, it's a big old lip under there, and that is going to be, it's not so bad this side, but worse on that side. He said, well, weirdly, when they first ran it, it had a misfire on number one.
Oh, right.
So whether the gasket was blowing, but all of this ain't going to help the mixture, is it?
No, it ain't. I thought that felt a bit like wet and a bit sort of like it's holding maybe fuel in it or something.
Maybe, but the trouble is with silicon,
yeah,
especially on a surface like this, where this is anodised by the looks of it, it's never going to stick to that.
Not really.
And if you're sucking air, it could be drawing air through there, and your mixture's going to be all to shit. So we're going to do away with that. We're going to get some proper O-rings from Turbo Sport and fit this properly. His thermostat housing is leaking, so we may have to face the end of the head where the thermostat housing goes, but we'll deal with that.
Yeah.
Everything else looks all right. The gasket doesn't look like it's blowing. It all looks good.
I mean, if you sort of look from a bit of a distance, that don't look like...
No.
Looks like that's been running rich, and that's about all you'd say.
Exactly. He's got a few little marks in the bore, because obviously, like here, it's gone down. You can see the top ring, but fortunately, it has... it's not pinched the bore. It hasn't pinched the ring and scored the bore. So I measured the bore. It's absolutely bang on. So I've ordered a new set of these at 91 mil.
Yeah.
So we can deglaze it, chuck them straight in. Obviously check the big ends and that while we're at it. I think the reason why he's down on power wouldn't even so much to do with that, maybe, but that gasket, maybe. It's going to be disturbing the air like you wouldn't believe, isn't it?
Yeah.
So it's never going to run to its full potential.
Have you done a compression test and everything? Or?
He didn't do a compression test, no. This is we get this all the time, don't we? We get people ring up with symptoms of something and they think in too complex before they do simply.
Yeah.
And you ask if they've done a compression test or
check the plugs or anything.
The plugs or something, and they haven't done it. No, I didn't check the compression, but to be honest with you,
it don't look
there's not a lot of point really on this because we stuck a camera down. If I hadn't have seen anything, I'd have probably done a compression test before we whipped the head off.
Yeah.
But, you know, the weird thing is, I mean, it could have been like that for quite some time, but it's you know, he's probably done 100 miles of rallying, which is quite a lot of miles, you know.
In theory, really, that would still hold good compression because it's not like on one of the end gaps.
Well, if it hasn't pinched a ring, then really there's no reason why it shouldn't. But the problem is here, because of the nature of this, we've had to...
It's all quite thin.
Yeah, it's very, very thin, and you've got sharp edges, which is not ideal. And if there's going to be a hot spot created, it's going to be there, isn't it?
Yeah.
So
it's almost like so thin that if you tried to radius it off, you'd just get rid of the edge, wouldn't you?
Oh, yeah.
Right.
So what I might do is run a little bit thicker gasket.
Yeah.
Maybe. I might take a bit off the edge, a bit off these pistons or the new pistons. If we run a little bit thicker gasket, in theory, what that does is bring the valves in, so we haven't got to take as much meat out. It leaves a little bit more meat around there.
I see what you're saying.
Know what I mean?
Because the valves
are on an angle. If you lift them up, when they come down, they're going to be, you're going to be a bit more in on the pockets. So yeah, that is what we found, mate. But at least we found something. But that we're going to have to do something about that, aren't we?
Well, the thing is, like with a motor like this, it's a naturally aspirated, converted, turbocharged engine, which is it's very, very heavily modified, is what I'm
It is. I mean, the head is designed for turbo, isn't it?
Yeah.
So the combustion chamber is shaped for the original piston crown design. So you've obviously got to up the compression. There's only one way of doing that, really, isn't there? And that's to fill the combustion chamber with the top of the piston. But because of the nature of this, with a big valve head, you're gonna.
That's its crux, really, isn't it? That big valve head.
It is really, yeah. It creates more power.
Well, yeah, more power, but you have to have the pistons with very, very thin edges to the valve pockets, and that's not
the only other thing you could do is you could bore it out, so you've got bigger CC, and that gives you a bigger piston, in effect, running more meat on the edges. But I don't know what the CC...
But then you've only got... How much bigger can you go? 91.5?
Well, I mean, you can go... The trouble is, you've got a 205 block, haven't you? So the way to do it really would be to start putting ductile iron liners in there, go out to potentially, you can go to like 94 mil.
Really?
Yeah, you can go quite big. So I'll have a word with Kev, see how far he wants to go with it. But back in the day, when we did this, I looked at the bill, and to be honest, it's probably half the amount it would have been these days. So although it was a few quid, it's like, you know, and back then, you know, we weren't so involved with these, were we? But now, because we know the Cosies, it's like, sort of know what you have to do. So yeah, there we go, mate.
Well, this ain't just your normal bread and butter Cosie either. It's a whole different kettle of fish, really. It
is, yeah. But he said it did go all right at the beginning.
Yeah.
Just sort of gradually. I expect they started to draw air through that gasket because he said it gradually wasn't quite so good.
Doesn't look the best, does it, for 100 miles?
So hopefully the bottom end's all good, mate. Don't have to get involved with that. Quick deglaze, tidy it all up, redo his rocker cover because that looks awful.
It does, doesn't it?
And, and away he goes.
Yeah.
Moral of the story, mate. Don't fit throttle bodies like that.
No, Not with those. Not with that gasket.
No.
Use correct gaskets.
Yes.
Simple.
Isn't it? That's it for another video. See you Friday.